Hi everyone, welcome back to Cooking Club. We're gonna get started, and this week we are making s'mores bars. So we just need a few things. A whole box of graham crackers. You'll need a stick of butter and something to melt it in because we're gonna fully melt. A whole bag of mini marshmallows. And then we'll need a whole bag of chocolate chips. We may or may not use all of them. A couple other miscellaneous items that are helpful. If you have a storage bag, a full-size one, a rolling pin, and then you will need a bowl. So these two items so that we can make our graham cracker crust. Our first step is to preheat the oven to 350 degrees, and we're going to get going on our crust. So what we'll do is get our bag open. And I've never actually counted before. I just kind of mash up the graham crackers and go from there. But according to Google, 1 cup of graham cracker crumbs is about 14 cookies. So what I'm gonna do is open one sleeve, and then I'm gonna open a second sleeve, and then we'll see what that gets us. We'll just scoop them into our bowl. And see how many cups we actually get out of it. Okay, just toss this really quick. All right. So now, make sure you close your bag and make sure that it clicks all the way across, because we don't want to have a bag that accidentally opens on us. So now I'm just going to kind of mush them like this to start. Alright, so I've broken up the big sheets. Now, what I'm going to do is open up one corner because I do have a lot of air in there that I can feel. So I'm just going to kind of push it out. Seal it back up again, make sure it's nice and sealed tight. And I'm going to take my rolling pin and just kind of roll over it this way. You can also use the bottom of a cup like this. So now that I've shown you that, what I'm going to do is just move over to my countertop, so I'm not doing this on my stovetop. Let's see if I can bring you with me. There we go. Some people also do this in a food processor. You just really want to watch your bag because as the sharp edges of the graham crackers hit against the bag, it might rip a hole in it, and then you've got cracker crumbs everywhere. Whoa. That is why I moved from my glass stovetop. See, I've got cracker crumbs spilling out of the opposite side of the bag, so I definitely ripped a hole somewhere. So what I'm gonna do now, you can see this is a nice fine crumble on the back side. There's the hole. I'm gonna flip it so that I can kind of get some of that on the other side. We really want it to be ground up pretty fine. It doesn't have to be complete dust, but it is helpful if it'll absorb the butter better and give us a better crust if we do. So I'm gonna just kind of grab where my hole is in the bag and scoop that down a little bit. All right. let's see what we've ended up with. I'm gonna grab my bowl. My 1 cup seems to be probably in the dishwasher, so I'm gonna go with 2 half cups to start. So there's 1 half cup. There's another half cup, and then I'm gonna add 2 more because we need 2 full cups of graham cracker crumbs. All right, so I'd say that was pretty good. I don't have a whole lot of graham cracker dust left. There's definitely some. You could take out a couple crackers and then see what you end up with. I've got a huge mess over here. Please make sure that if you get a hole in your bag and make a mess, that you wipe up your counters. I assume we're doing that anyway. But now we're gonna pop the butter into the microwave for, I'm gonna start with just 20 seconds. It might pop, it might not. And then while we're doing that, I think one ingredient I forgot to mention was the powdered sugar. We're gonna put that into our crust, and then it'll go into here, and that will be helpful because powdered sugar, when it gets hot, it kind of will help it bind together. And that's just a half a cup. We don't need a whole cup. All right, so half a cup of powdered sugar. Back out of my way. Let's check on our butter. So what I'm going to do is give it a stir. You can see it's not fully melted yet. And we do need it to be for this recipe. I'm only going to go about 10 more seconds for this. While that's doing that, I'm going to just mix my powdered sugar in with my graham crackers. Okay. Again, be careful whenever we're heating glass in the microwave. So I am not going to at first pour this whole cup into my bowl. I'm going to do a little bit at a time because we don't want the butter to be pooling on the top. If we have too much butter, that's not gonna, I mean, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but it's not gonna be great for our crust. So I'm just gonna leave like that much left. Now what I'll do is start to incorporate this, and if it's not coming together, then that's how we know we need to add more butter. You can kind of push it down. We've got crumbs and sugar flying everywhere. All right, so it's definitely all buttery at this point, but it's not coming together. If you see when I push it, it's not sticking to itself. So I'm gonna add the rest of the butter. And if it's still a little bit not quite enough, I know that I don't want more for myself, but if you have an extra, quarter of a stick of butter or even less, feel free to add that in yourself. That is perfectly fine. I'm only sending you home with a stick because I know that works well for me and my liking. I don't want it to be too buttery. So it's piecing together a little bit more. It's sticking to my fingers. See how that whole chunk just stuck to itself? That's what we want to see. So once you feel like it's all combined, we're gonna go back to our prepared baking dish. One second, I've made quite the mess. And again, prepared baking dish means I've sprayed it with a nonstick spray. You can kind of see there. All right, so we're making our crust now. And this is the same if you were to do a graham cracker crust, to do some sort of pie or cheesecake or anything. I've seen them with just graham cracker and butter. I've seen lots of variations. The powdered sugar just helps it bind, like I said. Can use it, don't have to use it. There's tons of recipes out there for a graham cracker crust, but this is what's going to be our graham cracker for our s'mores base. So I am going to just pour this everywhere. Spread it around like so. And then what we're gonna do, you can use your fingers or your spatula. I'm gonna use my spatula to start. And then if I see any holes, I'll go in and just smush it down with my fingers. So this looks pretty good for me. So you want to really just make sure that it's even and there's no holes anywhere or big mounds of graham crackers. So I'm going to wash my hands again really quick, and then this is going to go in the oven at 350 for about 5 to 8 minutes, just until it gets golden brown. It's a little bit hard to see. I know that sounds kind of funny because graham crackers already are golden brown, but you'll just have to watch it and you'll see that it will change color. We want it to just be bound and kind of baked in, and then it's going to go in the oven a couple more times as we add the next layers. So 5 to 8 minutes. 1 second, I'm going to wash my hands. Right, so I'm gonna pop this in there, and I always go on the low end, as we've talked about. So I'm gonna start my timer at 5 minutes, and then we'll see where we're at, and if I need to go 3 extra minutes, I might, but other than that, I'll see you back here in 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, so I ended up going with 8 minutes. Be very careful if you do this, but I would just ask an adult in your household, but you can see that this is coming together really nicely, and it's going to continue to harden as it sits in the pan. The pan is very hot. It's very, and we're putting it back in the oven 2 more times, so it's going to keep that heat. So our next step is chocolate chips. So what I'm gonna do is try to not dump the whole bag at once, but if you do, that's okay. You basically just want to cover all of the graham cracker. I could keep this last little bit. I don't know if it's worth keeping that much of a bag, so I'm going to dump it. Why not? And I'm going to find another spatula. Use this really quick because it's handy. So you can see the chocolate chips are already starting to melt right when they touch the graham cracker crust. So now we're going to pop this back in the oven. Same temp. We didn't turn the oven off. We're gonna go for 3 minutes, just until this is nice and melty, and then we'll pull it back out. So be very careful as we're handling hot dishes, and we'll let that melt for about 3 minutes. Okay, so 3 minutes, and these are now just spreading. This is very satisfying. I feel like it's one of those little Zen gardens with the rake. All right. And it doesn't have to be perfectly to the edges, that's okay. If you can get it there, great. Just getting it as close as I can. Now comes the part where we really need to pay attention. So, we've got all that spread out. Now what we're going to do is cover all of the chocolate with the marshmallows, and after we put it in the oven, we are switching it to broil. And I know we've talked about that a few times with certain recipes. When you're broiling something, you have to be very, very careful, because it can go from everything's fine to, wow, my stuff is on fire very quickly. So what the purpose of the broil is here is to brown the marshmallows to be almost like a toasted marshmallow like you would have at a campfire when you're making s'mores, hence the s'mores bars. So we want to try and cover as much of the chocolate as possible. It may or may not take the whole bag. If you want to use the whole bag, by all means. See any holes, you can just take one or two here and there and fill them in. All right, so that was almost a full bag for me. So now I'm gonna pop this in. I'm not gonna stop the video. So really quick, putting this in the oven, and I'm going to turn my oven light on. And now I'm turning my oven to broil on low. And I'm gonna set a timer just in case for about 2 minutes, but we're not necessarily going to leave it in for the entire 2 minutes. If it starts to get brown very quickly, we're gonna pull it. If it needs a little bit more time, because we just want that kind of golden toasted marshmallow look to it. We don't want super brown, we don't want just melted. So my oven light is on. I am watching everything. I have it on low broil, and we're just gonna stay on and see what happens with our roasting process. About 1:26 left. Watching it pretty closely. They're starting to poof up for me. I don't know about you. This is kind of one of those sit and wait things, but you don't want to walk away from the oven at this point because, like I said, the broil can get out of control very quickly. So make sure that you are paying attention. You're not leaving the oven unattended at all. When we're doing things like baking cookies, sure. You know it's in there for 8 to 10 minutes or 10 to 12 minutes. We can step away and you've set your timer so you can come back, but this is really, so I'm actually gonna show you. They're starting to get big. Let me shut the door again just for the sake of keeping all the heat in, but they're starting to really poof up and the edges are cracking. So that's once the exterior of the marshmallow, because if you feel it, once we get to the inside, that's the part that's gonna get all browned because that's the soft part. So mine is smelling very, very toasty right now. So you can kind of see how the tops are getting roasted. Got some steam coming out. So I feel pretty good about my step in the process. I just turned my broiler off. Oh, that was great timing. Like I said, don't take your eyes off of it. We're steaming over here. So this one came out pretty good for me. We've got lots of toasty marshmallows right there, just like a campfire. What we really want to do is make sure that you are letting them cool completely. We're not going to try to do any sort of cutting yet, and what that will do is allow for the crust on the bottom to harden. If it didn't harden all the way, then that might be a tip for yourself for next time to just add a smidge more butter. But for me, this works well. And again, just be very, very careful with the broiler on the marshmallows. We do not want an oven fire. But other than that, this is a pretty easy recipe if you need a quick dessert and kind of a fun way to have s'mores in the middle of winter if you don't want to go outside. So I hope you all liked this, and I will see you next week with a new recipe. Bye everyone.